Thanks for checking in with Shooting It Straight. We're having a discussion about your Glock factory sights and how to tell if you have the correct sights on your Glock. Now this comes from several complaints I've heard from Glock owners who have told me that their Glock pistol consistently shoots high or consistently shoots low, even during bag rest shooting. Now, whether you have the correct sights on your gun depends on which type of hold or point of aim you were using, which will depend on what shooting discipline you are engaged in. Now that may be a little confusing at first, so let me try to clear it up. There are basically two types of sight holds, or also point of aim for shooting. In other words, where you hold that front sight on the target. That's your point of aim. That's your hold, okay? Generally, defensive type shooting uses what's called a combat hold or a center hold. And that's where the front sight is held directly on where you want the bullet to hit, your point of impact, which is where the bullet hits, right? The orange represents the bullseye. Let's say this is an 8-inch steel plate, and this is the center of that steel plate, and you want to hit right at the center of that steel plate. Well, you would use if you're a defensive shooter, you would use a combat hold or a center hold. And this black dot represents your front sight. This is where you'd hold your front sight, because that's where your shot is going to impact. So your point of aim and point of impact are the same. Alright, now target shooters, on the other hand, well, they want to see the entire target, which may be a bullseye or that 6-inch steel plate, right? So they're going to lower their front sight to the bottom edge of that target, which is referred to as a 6 o'clock hold. The bullseye of the target is right here, but their front sight is going to be down here around the bottom, because they want to see they need to see the entire target. All right, so they adjust their sights so that their point of impact hits higher. Their bullet will hit higher than where they're aiming at, and they adjust it for that difference. So this is a 6 o'clock hold. That's a center hold. Target shooting, defensive or combat shooting, which is why they call it a combat hold. Alright. Generally, but not in all cases, handguns intended to be used primarily for defensive purposes or law enforcement or military use will have the sights installed and set at the factory for a center or combat hold. Such as Glocks, okay? Glocks are aimed at law enforcement and military. So Glocks generally have a combat hold, a center hold. Their sights are set up for center hold. Now I have seen some Glocks come from the factory that were not set up for a center hold for whatever reason. I don't know. So if your Glock sights are set up for a center hold, but you're actually aiming with your front sight below the bullseye down here, well then your shot will hit down here. So it's not the gun that's shooting low, it's you shooting low. The gun is set up for that hold, but you're holding it down here, and that's why it's hitting down here. Alright. Now, here's how to tell if your sights are set for what's called point of aim, point of impact, which is a center hold or combat hold, or for the bullet to hit above or below your point of aim. Now remember, point of aim is where your front sight, whatever part of the target your front sight is on, okay, that's your point of aim. If you aim down here, that's your point of aim. If you aim right here, that's your point of aim. POA, point of aim. Alright? Point of impact is where that bullet actually hits. Okay? Alright, look at your, look on the right side of your rear sight. You should see a long horizontal line. Well, it's not really long, but it's a horizontal line here. That line represents your point of aim. Alright? If this is the only line you have on the right side of your sight, then your point of impact will be the same as your point of aim, which is a center hold. And that's the typical Glock rear sight. And it sits at 6.5 millimeters in height. Alright. And this is the old factory sight. Now I know you won't be able to see it, but the line is right here. It's just got one line, horizontal line, right here, which would be the right side of the sight. Same thing on these Glock factory sights, except they're steel sights. It's got that one line right here. Okay. And you'll see it. You'll see it like that. This is the right side of your sight, rear sight. There's that line I was talking about. If this is the only line you have on there, then your point of impact is going to be exactly where you're putting the front of that sight, that front sight. Whatever you put that front sight on is where your bullet will impact. Alright? Now, if you have a shorter line right below that long line, that means your point of impact will be below your point of aim. And you'll see it represented like this. You'll see a shorter line below the longer line. It may even look like almost like a dot below that line. That indicates that the point of impact is going to be below your aim point or point of aim. Okay? If, on the other hand, your sight has a short line or dot above that line, above that longer line, well then your point of impact is going to be slightly above your aim point, your point of aim, slightly above. Okay? Hang on. So if you use a 6 o'clock hold to shoot, you should use a rear sight that has a short line above the long line. That's the rear sight you want if you're going to use a 6 o'clock hold. And like I said, that's usually, target shooters usually use that type of a hold. So that's the type of sight you'll need. Because you can aim here and still see the entire target, but know that your bullet is going to impact up here where you want it to. You don't want to be hitting the edge of the target, you want to be hitting the center of it. But you want to be able to see the whole target. So the bottom edge down here is where you aim. That way you can see the whole target. Now, a short line above or below the long line, or the point of aim line, will result in roughly 2 inches of impact difference at 25 yards. The tallest Glock factory rear sight is at 7.3 millimeters, and that's indicated by having 2 short lines above the long line, or the point of aim line. And don't worry about the front sight, because Glock front sights are all the same height, which is roughly 4.19 millimeters or 4.2 millimeters. So if your shots are hitting where you want them to hit, whenever you use the factory Glock sights that came with your gun, changing those sights out to aftermarket sights means you'll have to go by the height of your sight. The 6.5 or 6.1 millimeter or 7.3 millimeter or something like that. You'll have to be going by those measurements to get the correct sights on your gun, since aftermarket sights will not have those point of aim, point of impact lines on them. Okay, so I hope that kind of clears up some confusion. So the problem with your Glock hitting high or low may not be the sights at all. It may be your point of aim. You may be aiming it wrong. You may be using the wrong hold on it, or you may be using the correct hold and have the sights, you know, for whatever reason, the wrong sight installed. But anyway, they're easy enough to change out, and I hope that helped you out and answered some questions. So thanks for watching. I'm Antonius, and you know, man, I'm just shooting it straight with you. Ciao.